welcome to the daily live stream. All right, tonight's a news night, so I got a couple clips for us to watch. Really good clips that I'm excited about. Some about mental health, some about the new Epstein files that have dropped and nobody's really talking about them. Hakeem Jeffries' comments on the partial government shutdown. Mike Johnson's comments on the partial government shutdown. So we're gonna be watching some news tonight. Light, not much commentary at all, and then we'll jump back into that later on tomorrow morning. So let's get right into it. Make sure that you guys hit that like button as you come in. Make sure that you interact with each other in the chat. Please be respectful of the subscribers, the supporters, and the mods. That's the only thing that will get you kicked out of the chat or censored. But other than that, just enjoy the live stream. Please be respectful and be engaging in the chat. Shout out to you guys.
Everywhere on your television and media feeds. Experts warn that the exposure enforcement actions is everywhere on your television and media feeds. Experts warn that the exposure can take a toll on a child's mental health, especially when violence is involved. Maribel Gonzalez shares practical tips to help parents and educators talk with children about these difficult topics in a supportive and age-appropriate way.
Immigration raids and protests in response are making nationwide headlines. Health experts say images like these can be overwhelming for children who may be privy to them even when parents don't realize it.
In the age of social media, kids are oftentimes learning information through their friends or things that they see on the website or over here in the news.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Natalie Cruz explains how parents can spot if their child may be experiencing stress.
One minute they're sad, the next minute they're angry, and maybe it goes beyond kind of what is typical for the teenager.
Having an open and honest dialogue with kids is key.
Hey, Johnny, there's been so much happening in the news lately. Have you heard anything about immigration or ICE? Start open. Start with a wide kind of question and see where that leads you.
For families and communities impacted directly by immigration enforcement,
there's a whole lot of children. They're simply not going to school right now because the fear that's happening in the community is just very real.
Experts say if you feel you may be targeted by ICE, having a contingency plan helps children feel secure amid uncertainty.
A child benefits from knowing what would happen to them, who would take care of them.
And for those not directly impacted,
focus in on the areas that the child and the family do have control over.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
Tipping? Awesome idea. At least if you're in the U.S., but try doing that in Japan.
Like I said, this is something I haven't heard anybody talk about so far. And this concerns the sale of TikTok from China to the United States. As you know, last year, the TikTok ban went into effect. And we all know the story there. Shortly after October 7th, all of these pro-Palestine hashtags went super viral on TikTok. And this was contrary to every other social platform. Every other social platform in America, in the world, Facebook, Instagram, I believe even Twitter, every single social platform was pro-Israel. The top hashtags were pro-Israel. The algorithm favored pro-Israel sentiment, except for TikTok. And on TikTok in November and December 2023, you had millions and millions of users posting stories about the genocide in Gaza, about the disproportionate use of force, criticizing the Israeli war in Gaza. And so the American Jewish community started to freak out. Now, the timeline is important here, okay? This is November and December 2023. This is a month, 2 months after October 7th. This is when the airstrikes began. It's when the ground incursion began. And the Jewish community in the United States lost their mind. They said, we have to do something about this. They characterized this as an unprecedented rise in anti-Semitism. And so the ADL, the North American Jewish Federation, other Jewish groups got together and they started to lobby politicians. They started to lobby Republicans, they lobbied Congress, they lobbied presidential candidates, and they said, we need to wrest control of TikTok from China And once under American control, we can regulate it and we can censor it. And some of the narratives going around at the time, they said that the longer a user uses TikTok, the more time a user spends on the platform, the more anti-Semitic they become. They literally got it down to a science. They came up with all these quantitative reports, they created all this data, and they said there's millions of anti-Semitic posts. And a user that spends an hour a day on TikTok is this much more likely to be an anti-Semite, and so on and so forth. This is how it goes. Jewish community gets together, they voice their concerns, they express their anecdotal experience, their outrage. The various Jewish researchers get together from World Jewish Congress, from ADL. They create these statistical analyses, these reports. Then the Jewish lobbying groups furnish Congress, furnish the politicians with the reports. You don't believe me? In the GOP primary in the spring of 2024, Nikki Haley, who is a well-known neocon, very close with Miriam Adelson, she went on the Republican debate stage and said those statistics. She went on the stage and said, the longer a user is on TikTok, the more likely they are to be an anti-Semite. The more time they spend on TikTok, the more anti-Semitic they become, according to these groups. This is literally how it works.
So, who cares? Like, seriously, we are talking about a social media platform. Like, people can have their own opinions, right? So we need to censor now people's opinions? Is this what we want? Then we don't have freedom of speech, right? I think it's good that people can have their own opinions on these kind of platforms. I think it's more scary if you're trying to censor all these kind of things. That has nothing to do with freedom of speech. And I'm not surprised that there are some people in our country who would love to censor all these kind of things. But we should not allow this. We should not allow this. I'm happy that we have some kind of platforms where you can still like have your own opinion. I mean, like, with respect, of course, but again, when I go to TikTok, I only see cat and dog videos almost, but maybe this is my algorithm. But all these people are complaining about TikTok now as well, but believe me, this is going to be a very interesting story or a very interesting video again, because Nick will expose everything what happened with TikTok and what will happen with TikTok, because this is also scary.
In the spring of 2024, Congress passed a law banning TikTok. Specifically, it said that either TikTok will be banned in the United States or China can sell TikTok to the United States, and then we can work out a deal where we can keep it active in the United States. Now, they said that they were banning the platform under the pretext that this had to do with privacy concerns and national security concerns. TikTok is owned by its parent company ByteDance, headquartered in Beijing. And so they said, as they did years ago, that if the United States has this giant user base and all these American users have the TikTok app on their phone, well, the app is harvesting all their data from their device. It uses their camera, their microphone, accesses their location, other app data, device data. And if TikTok is extracting all the data from the device and the company is headquartered in Beijing, well, the Chinese Communist Party can always make a covert, clandestine data request, and they can order ByteDance to turn over all that information to the Chinese government. And so all that data about American users, which is everything, who they know, where they live, their search queries, their contacts on their phone, what they're doing, what they're saying, in real life, if it has access to your camera and microphone, their passwords, I mean, you name it. These apps can extract a lot of data. Well, the concern is then that poses a national security threat. This is the pretext. Now, the pretext is basically nullified because what a lot of people don't know about TikTok is that ever since 2020, all of TikTok user data in the United States is hosted inside the United States. There was a big push to ban TikTok in Trump's first term in 2019 and 2020, and they said the same thing. They banned it on government devices, and the compromise that they reached with TikTok is that U.S. user data would be hosted by an American company inside the United States. and that company is Oracle. Oracle has been hosting all of TikTok's American user data for the last 6 years.
It's the perfect time to refresh your home and save big at the Living Spaces President's Day event.
So that's sort of a fake concern. Now, they played that up, and theoretically it's possible that the Chinese government, because it has jurisdiction over ByteDance, could get ByteDance to acquire the data somehow, as long as ByteDance owns the data, even if it's hosted in the United States. Who knows? Maybe there's some way that they could get it. I don't find that to be a compelling argument. The real reason is that TikTok was out of control. And in a situation where America is backing Israel in this conflict, and TikTok is becoming a source of potentially soft power influence, either from a foreign country or China itself, some third-party foreign country or China, well, then maybe that poses some threat to American interests. Maybe that's more likely. Either way, there was heavy lobbying from the government of Israel, from Jewish groups. When Congress banned TikTok, the Jewish community took credit and they celebrated. North American Jewish Federation, other Jewish groups took a victory lap. They said, we did this, it was our lobbying efforts, we were trying to fight anti-Semitism, and we succeeded. The law passed. Shortly before Trump got into office last year, TikTok was banned for a couple of days. They passed the deadline. TikTok was unwilling to sell to the United States, and so it was banned for a few days. Before Trump got into office, he worked out a deal where they would delay the implementation of the ban. Trump issued a waiver where TikTok could remain active without a deal in the United States for a certain amount of time while Trump negotiated a deal with China. Eventually, they worked out a framework agreement, and the framework agreement was part of a broader bilateral trade deal, and it would have ByteDance selling TikTok's U.S. business to a consortium of U.S. companies. It's a newly created private entity. It's going to be made up of Oracle and a bank in the United Arab Emirates, I believe. It's one of those Gulf countries. Some other banks and other private equity players are involved.
So, well, did you hear that, guys? Who got the ownership now? Oracle. Who owns Oracle? We all know this, Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison, very famous guy, right? Do you know that this guy is one of his biggest friends is Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel? Kind of suspicious, right? Do you know that Larry Ellison is one of the biggest donors of the IDFs? He gives so much money to the IDF, it's actually insane. You can Google this right away now if you don't believe me. Do you know that Bibi Netanyahu many times slept in his apartment in London of Larry Ellison? This guy is now gonna be the owner of TikTok. Well. So when China had the ownership of TikTok, it was a big threat to our country. Oh, it was so dangerous. This should not be allowed. But now when a pro-Israel guy like Larry Ellison partly owns TikTok, then it's all fine. We have nothing to worry about. What a joke, right? This just shows you how it goes. It's actually insane. Just think about it. And Nick is not done yet. This is just a start. But you should really think about it. When China was the owner, it was a big threat. Now when another guy who is loyal to another foreign country has the ownership, there's no problem at all. Well. Kind of suspicious, right?
And nobody's going to have a majority stake. It's going to be split up a bunch of different ways. But they've created this newly created private sector entity. It's a group of investors. They're going to buy TikTok. I think they valued it at $15 billion. And now not only will the U.S. data be hosted here, but the data will also be owned by an American entity. And it's a huge deal. There's 200 million U.S. users. It's sold to the United States. They worked that out some months ago. Now the deal has finally been implemented. Now, we've talked about on the show who the primary beneficiary of the deal is. As I said, 5 or 6 years ago, when the United States forced China to move the hosting of U.S. user data to America, the company that took up that burden was Oracle. So they've been a part of this since the very beginning. Oracle has been a part of this deal since Trump's first term. Oracle has been part of this negotiation since this conversation started, since TikTok became the fastest growing platform in America. And what we know about Oracle is that it is owned by Larry Ellison. And Larry Ellison, surprise, surprise, is a major proud Jew and a very close personal friend of the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's a huge supporter of Israel itself. He's a major private benefactor of the IDF. He's actually friends, not just with Netanyahu, but with the whole family. And he considers Netanyahu a political ally. So this is the guy that's been hosting the data. Now, when Trump got back into office, he finished the job, so to speak. Whereas in his first term, he got all the data into Oracle. Now that he's back in charge for the second term, he's giving the whole company to Oracle. And Oracle's playing a very special role at TikTok. So they're hosting the data. Oracle is now a 20% owner of the US TikTok business. And unlike any of the other investors, Oracle has exclusive access to TikTok's proprietary algorithm.
Roundup's fair change into saving stocks with Bitcoin, and you use your Cash App card.
Give me 17 cents on Bitcoin.
My wife said, if you win, we'll fly to Asia. If I win, we'll fly to Paris. I bet you won't get towed.
So, if you know anything about TikTok, you know that what makes TikTok such an attractive platform is its algorithm. That is what makes it unique. That is what makes it competitive. That's the secret sauce. That's the thing that TikTok has that no other platform has. Every platform has emulated and imitated the short form content, the format, the swiping. You have YouTube Shorts, you have Instagram Reels, you have a similar feature on Snapchat. Even X has emulated TikTok. But the secret sauce that TikTok has is its proprietary algorithm, which is how it curates a user's For You page. How it analyzes user behavior, time spent watching a particular video, whether they like it, comment, react. And then how it populates that user's For You page with content that they are going to like. That's what makes it addictive. That's what increases the amount of time that a user spends on the platform. It's how efficient the algorithm is at finding content that the user is going to like and spend time watching. That is the advantage that TikTok has over all the rest.
Exactly, and this is very important because if they can control this algorithm, they can show so many people. Nick just said 200 people in the United States are using TikTok, and that's only in the United States. Can you imagine in the whole West, in the Western world, how many people are using TikTok? If they can control this algorithm, they can exactly show you what they want you to see. So they can decide what you will see on your screen. And we all know TikTok is probably like the #1 most famous app nowadays. Everyone is almost using it. So yeah, they can control a lot of people's opinions, a lot of people's minds by showing you what they want you to see. That's ridiculous, right? Because of course you get the point. When China had the ownership, you could see whatever you like. It was an algorithm made for you. So if you liked, for example, me, cat dog videos, yeah, then you saw a bunch of cat dog videos. But if you saw some anti-Israel videos, for example, then you saw a lot of anti-Israel videos. But now they can control this, so they can decide what you will see on your screen. And that's very dangerous, right? Because if you can, with some buttons, you can control the mind of almost 200 people. And it's not like you can't control the minds, of course, but you understand the point I'm trying to make. You can influence, that's a better word. You can influence on many people's opinion by showing them what you want them to see. So that's very dangerous, and this is, again, it's super shady, but Nick is not done yet. This is going to be like a deep dive into what is actually happening with TikTok behind the scenes. It's a little bit scary, if you ask me.
And so, as a part of this deal, to reiterate, Oracle owns the data. Oracle owns 20% of this newly created consortium. And unlike any other partner like Silver Lake and some of the others, Oracle, being a back-end tech company, is going to actually gain access to the algorithm. They're getting the secret formula. TikTok is giving them the algorithm, and because Oracle is a partner in this newly created US TikTok company, Oracle gets to modify the algorithm. Oracle gets the algorithm. Oracle gets to modify the algorithm for the U.S. business. So U.S. TikTok is getting a whole new management here. TikTok US is going to be a whole different app. And understand, a lot of people are looking at this deal, and you might look at it at face value. You might look at it on the surface and say, well, Oracle is only one partner among others. Oracle only has 19%. Oracle's not really going to be in charge. But again, they own the data, they own the algorithm, they own a large share, the largest share, and they're going to be running the algorithm, which is the essence of TikTok. And if they're modifying it, then that means they're effectively controlling what TikTok is. They are exercising direct control over what you see on the platform. So you think about a company like Meta or Alphabet, you think about these other social platforms, and you could say, well, I may own stock in Facebook. I don't control what's on Facebook. I own stock in Google. I don't control what's on Google. Looks like we're dropping some frames. Are we good? We have this problem every night now, this ghetto platform.
Ghetto platform. That's hilarious.
Okay, are we back?
Really, Nick?
It's tax expertise without fees. Switch to a TurboTax expert.
I think we're back. We only dropped 300 frames. We should be okay. I think it dropped out for a second. Okay, I think we're back. Anyway, so as I was saying, Oracle is the indispensable player here. Now, the reason I bring this up, of course, is because if Larry Ellison is who he is, if he is a political ally of Netanyahu, if he is a proud Zionist, a supporter of the IDF, and the rest of it, and if Oracle is controlled by Larry Ellison, and if Oracle is now going to be controlling what's on your For You page, well, that poses a conflict of interest. Remember the timeline. Why was TikTok banned in the first place? Forcing the sale of TikTok to Oracle. TikTok was banned in the first place because of lobbying by the Israel lobby. Lobbying by the Israel lobby in the aftermath of October 7th. So you could say that this happened from start to finish, basically to stop people from criticizing Israel on TikTok. To insulate the American user base potentially from manipulation by other countries. Insulate the American user base from content preferences of global users. We're effectively creating a Jewish firewall around TikTok. Powerful Jews got together after October 7th and said, there's too much criticism of Israel's war in Gaza on TikTok. So the Jewish groups heard this, created their statistics, lobbied the government to ban TikTok. Banning TikTok forced the sale. Trump got into office on the back of pro-Israel billionaires like Ellison, like Miriam Adelson, and others, like other big tech players. He secured the sale, and his friend Larry Ellison got the lion's share of the leverage over the platform. Now that they control the algorithm, they can solve that problem that they had from 2 years ago. That's the play.
Wow, again, spot on. Like, seriously, this is so important. And not many people that actually know this, not many people talk about this. I just try to explain this as well, but Nick can do this 10 times better, of course. But this is so important because, long story short, so many people are just scrolling on their phone, just using TikTok. They have no idea what is going on behind the scenes. But I can tell you now already, if something is free, for example, with TikTok or any other social media, you are the product. We are the product. The people who are using this app, this social media app, we are the products. They have these databases. And as Nick just explained, one company, Oracle, is the ownership or has the ownership of almost 20% of TikTok. So this means that Oracle, the owner, Larry Ellison, and we just spoke already about who Larry Ellison actually is, his connections with like Bibi Netanyahu, for example. If people like this can control your For You page, do you know how dangerous that is? Because of course they can, just go to your For You page now. If they can literally show you what they want you to see, and this is what makes it so dangerous, because not many people they know about this. They don't talk about this. Imagine, like, especially younger people on TikTok, because many people on TikTok, they are like younger people, how easy they can be influenced by all the videos what Oracle wants them to see. I hope you get the point, but like, of course, not many people, they probably think like, oh, this is all fine, but this is seriously, this is very important. TikTok is is so powerful. People have no idea how powerful TikTok actually is. So I'm very happy that Nick just tried to explain this, and he's not done yet. But oh, bro, this is so, like, seriously, people should talk about this more, because this is very important. Many young people are on TikTok, and they can be influenced so easy.
And as I said, this is part of a bigger push. Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison, recently acquired Paramount Pictures, which includes CBS, among other properties. What did they do at CBS News? They fired the editor-in-chief, and they replaced him with Barry Weiss, who's another pro-Israel zealot. She fired their nightly news anchor and replaced him with Tony Dokapil, another Zionist Jewish zealot. This is the push. Now they've done the same thing at TikTok. So here's the story. The deal has been completed. It's a done deal. TikTok is now a distinct American entity, and they've appointed a new CEO. His name is Adam Presser. And sure enough, not only is Adam Presser a Jewish Zionist, but Adam Presser was actually hosting a forum of Jewish activists in December 2023 who were complaining about anti-Semitism and Israel criticism on the platform. This is the story.
Imagine you just survived a violent crash with an 18-wheeler, and the truck driver says you're...
I don't want to imagine that.
It says, quote, President Trump and TikTok announced on Thursday that the company had formed a joint venture to keep the video sharing app operating in the U.S. under new American leadership. The company said Adam Presser, who has been serving as TikTok's head of operations and trust and safety, will be the new CEO of TikTok USDS joint venture. Presser has worked at TikTok for almost 4 years and was previously a senior executive at Warner Brothers. TikTok CEO Shou Chu will be a director of the newly formed venture, which will run as an independent entity. TikTok USDS joint venture will operate under defined safeguards that protect national security through comprehensive data protections, algorithm security, content moderation, and software assurances for U.S. users, said the company. Trump hailed the deal in a Truth Social post on Thursday, stating that the company would now be owned by a group of great American patriots and investors, the biggest in the world. Now, this is a story from the New York Times in November 2023. This is 1 month after October 7th. This is about your new CEO. It says, quote, more than a dozen Jewish TikTok creators and celebrities confronted TikTok executives and other employees in a private meeting, urging them to do more to address a surge of anti-Semitism and harassment on the popular video service. The meeting, held on a video call for about 90 minutes, and joined by more than 30 people in all, including actors Sacha Baron Cohen, Deborah Messing, and Amy Schumer. It was led by Adam Presser, TikTok's head of operations, and Seth Melnick, its global head of user operations. These celebrities and creators described, sometimes with fiery rhetoric, how TikTok's tools did not prevent a flood of comments like Hitler was right, or I hope you end up like Anne Frank, under videos posted by them and other Jewish users. Mr. Cohen, who did not appear to have an official TikTok account, said, quote, what is happening in TikTok is it is creating the biggest anti-Semitic movement since the Nazis. He criticized violent imagery and disinformation on the platform, telling Mr. Presser, shame on you, claiming that TikTok could flip a switch to fix anti-Semitism on its platform. Mr. Presser of TikTok, who is Jewish and based in the United States, was largely conciliatory in the meeting. He said, quote, obviously a lot of what Sacha says, there's truth to that. referring to Mr. Cohen's remarks that social media companies need to take more action. He later said there was no magic button to address all the concerns raised. He said the use of the tools to perpetuate hate was another important flag for the company to follow up on. He said, quote, "We can do better." This is your new CEO of TikTok. Do you know that he also attended the World Jewish Congress Symposium in 2025 and discussed with a Jewish panelist about how they were going to shut down anti-Semitism on TikTok? Look it up. Adam Presser, World Jewish Congress, he was there and did a panel interview about the same thing. This is now the new CEO of TikTok under this newly created entity under Larry Ellison.
Oh boy.
Can anybody deny that this is the eighth front in Israel's war against Gaza, just as Netanyahu said?
Wow, like, you could not make this up, right? And the most crazy thing is, this all happened under the Trump-Stein administration, the America First administration. Actually, Donald Trump is the one who supported this deal, who helped with this deal.
Wow.
And this is your America First guy, so now we're gonna give TikTok to a company who has, like, connections with, like, a foreign government? Seriously? Larry Ellison, like, biggest friend of Bibi Netanyahu, he's now gonna be partly ownership of TikTok, and now it's all fine. So we brought it from the Chinese government, we took it from the Chinese government, and now we give it to a guy who has, like, connections with another government. Like, you could not make this up. It's just one big joke, or I wish this was a joke, but this is real. It's actually ridiculous, and I'm happy that Nick just talked about all these kind of things. But again, I wish we just had a president who was actually America First, who stopped lying straight into our face and who would help our country instead of other countries. But again, this is just my opinion. I'm very curious about your opinion. Do you agree with Nick on this one? What is your opinion? Do you still use TikTok now? I'm very curious. Please share your opinion in the comments. It's very important to say. I read all comments. I even try to reply to some of your.
All right, we're gonna look at some MAGA now.
Round up spare change into savings.
MAGA and Epstein file.
Use your Cash App card.
Give me 17 cents on Bitcoin.
Ready to refresh your space for less? At Living Spaces, thoughtful design and direct sourcing keep price.
Egan, are you covering this story? Well, let's take a look and see if you're any different than the rest. What do we got? Anti-ICE riots, illegal immigrants, Don Lemon, Don Lemon, Don Lemon, illegal immigrants, Don Lemon, Don Lemon, Don Lemon. So no, yet another MAGA influencer who hasn't done or said a single word about the new files release. Isn't that amazing? Here and the files. We've had a lot of new wild additions to the stories this week, from things like Elon Musk begging to go to the island and Jay-Z being implicated for disgusting, horrific crimes with Harvey Weinstein, so much so that he has now fled the country, supposedly, and deleted his Instagram. Wow, absolutely insane story, and you would think this story would be getting covered everywhere. I mean, everywhere, right? Right? Well, it turns out no. If you only ingest MAGA media and Fox News, for example, you may have not even heard that there was even a new Epstein files release, because I actually went through Fox News's pages and all of the MAGA influencers, and they are just eerily quiet on this. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Helps the channel. Let's jump into this thing. Let's talk about it. Why are these MAGA influencers all so suspiciously quiet? Yes, all the usual suspects, you guys know them. All of the people who've got no intellectual capability outside of simping for Donald Trump and MAGA. None of them got a goddamn word to say about this. Isn't that interesting? And it's a lot more than just them as well. You also got people like the MAGA binder dipshits here who were so proud that they were going to be able to release what's in the files. Well, what does people like Liz Wheeler have to say now? Well, I'm sure human praying mantis Liz Wheeler definitely covered this story, right? Let's take a look. China's plot, Pam Bondi, 0 indictments, 4 crimes committed by Becca Good, Trump frustrated with Pam Bondi. Oh, look at that. Nothing about the files. And that's going to be a common story as we work our way through all these MAGA talking heads and influencers. And it's just amazing to me that somehow none of them have even heard about this story yet. Now, why might that be? Why might all of these pro-Trump MAGA heads be silent right now? Could it have anything to do with, oh, I don't know, maybe the, pages and pages and pages of multiple victims accusing Donald Trump of raping teenage girls, running underage orgy sex parties, threatening to murder these girls if they end up saying anything? Just pages and pages, everything highlighted. Trump is implicated in these. So if you want to pause them and go all the way through them, you can. But I mean, as you can see here, it's just dozens and dozens and dozens. So you would think this is massive, massive story. You think, hey, you would absolutely want to cover the biggest story in the news, right? That's what we do as social media creators. And there's also, emails like this that are dropping. So this is a new one that just dropped. You may not have seen yet. Pretty interesting. Jeffrey Epstein talking about bringing girls to an event for Donald Trump. And what do they have to say here? It says, when we come next month, I'm thinking about bringing blank and blank with us. They're up for anything. You'll love them. Jeffrey Epstein says, not a good idea. Redacted, which, why would you redact who this is in this conversation? This isn't a victim. You should absolutely tell us, government, who is this clown? I don't know. But anyway, he responds, why? And Epstein says, Trump will be there. He doesn't like black girls. He calls them boogers. Won't go within 10 feet. Now, I feel like someone like Officer Tatum would find that highly, highly offensive, right? Well, I don't know. Let's see what he had to say about the Epstein file. Now, shockingly, Talmud Tatum here actually did. He's one of the very, very few MAGA influencers who did any content on this Epstein release. And what was his video on? His video is Trump scores huge win after new Epstein dump backfires on Democrats. So that's actually even worse. Rather than just being a silent little shill, Tatum, of course, because this is what the good guy does, he actually is out here defending the files, saying they exonerate Trump and backfire on Democrats. Interesting take, given all of the allegations of being 13-year-old girls there is in the new files released. But okay, and here's a new one that just got released recently. You may not have seen. I personally witnessed defendant Trump telling the plaintiff that she shouldn't ever say anything, and if she didn't want to disappear like the 12-year-old female blank, and that he was capable of having her whole family killed. As you see down here, the statement was, I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. This was done under oath. So, Apak Shakur, are you sure that that is exonerating Trump? Because it doesn't seem like it. But what did Donald Trump have to say about this new file drop where his name is in the files over 5,000 times?
Well, they should be, because it looked like this guy Wolf was a writer, was conspiring with Epstein to do harm to me. And I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, the radical left.
So Trump actually believes that the recent files release exonerates him. Now, what may actually be true, Trump may not have even any clue that all of these documents are out about him being teenagers, because he gets all of his news from Fox News. And let's see what Fox News has been covering. So yes, Fox News, baby, I'm sure they have covered this story in detail, digging up every piece of evidence they could find. Let's see. All right, we got a bunch about stolen elections, supplying oil, Turkey, Iran, revolutions, anti-ICE claims, Iran, Deep USA, Iran again, or Minneapolis, Iran, Minneapolis, ICE, Iran, more blaming of Democrats, Minneapolis, Iran, ICE. So it doesn't really matter how far I scroll down here, guys. Not a single story. Now, isn't that incredible? Not a single, not one news story of the new release of the Epstein files on Fox News. Now, this is where you need to understand the PSYOP portion of all this, right? So think about how many people, especially like the Republican boomer demographic, exclusively and only get their news through mainstream media. And obviously the majority of that through Fox News. And so if Fox News never plays a single story, doesn't say a word to any of their viewers about this happening, the reality is there's a huge portion of the country that doesn't even know these new files even exist. And that is 100% by design. Now, let's talk about the ladies of MAGA, because yes, the ladies of MAGA are a special type of disgusting, because these women know what happened to all these victims, these underage girls that were being sex-trafficked, murdered, we're learning at this point. And not only are they not covering the story and not denouncing the people involved, they're actually actively using their positions to try to protect files who were preying on underage girls. This has got to be some of the most disgusting shit that's out there right now. Now, obviously, people working for the government like Pam Bondi and Carolyn Levitt, they get up there with the cross necklaces on and lie blatantly through their teeth. They're going straight to hell for this. But someone like Megyn Kelly is interesting
So
because
they're
she
going
built
straight to
her
hell
whole
for this.
shtick at Fox News off being sort of the Republican Me Too woman, right? Always denouncing sexual assault from all the big wigs when the Harvey Weinstein case came out, all over it, right? Well, Megyn, are you covering this story? Well, let's take a look and see if you're any different than the rest. What do we got? Anti-ICE riots, illegal immigrants, Don Lemon, Don Lemon, Don Lemon, illegal immigrants, Don Lemon, Don Lemon, Don Lemon. So no, yet another MAGA influencer who hasn't done or said a single word about the new files release. Isn't that amazing? But maybe it's because Megyn already gave her stance on this. Now, you may remember this one, but Megyn Kelly really wanted to make it clear that as long as you're being teenage girls, it's okay. Because as long as they aren't like 8.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls.
So this actually kind of makes sense for her, for why she's not actually calling Donald Trump out for this and why she's completely silent with her platform on all of this, because like she says there, she's absolutely fine with 60-year-old men being 14 to 15-year-old girls. And so because Trump's being accused of being 13 and 14-year-old girls, it's completely fine with me. Now, we also know about Big E's ties to high-side intelligence apparatuses like Mossad and the CIA. And so I wonder what Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire have to say about all. Let's take a look at a couple clips here and see what old Shapiro thinks about this.
The reason the FBI is not releasing them is because those tapes do not include underage people with third parties on Epstein Island. That is not what the tapes are. And I also have sources in the federal government.
Oh, okay. So the tapes and the videos and the pictures don't have anything to do with minors. Even though the files have already proved that's exactly what's in the tapes and the videos. Take a look at another one.
Less shocked by this than some. The reason being, whenever there's this level of speculation without any sort of supporting evidence, it's not a shock to me when all that sort of falls apart.
Yeah.
What does this demonstrate? Well, it demonstrates that once the conspiracy theory gets going, it becomes utterly unfalsifiable.
There you go. Ben Shapiro's response: the Epstein files are all a giant conspiracy theory. Sure, man. No, like all these tens of millions of files are completely fake, and that's why people like Jay-Z are deleting their Instagram accounts and their social medias and fleeing the country. Because this is all one big conspiracy theory. Nice, Ben. This is probably why you're losing 10 to 40,000 subscribers a month, bud. And you know the fact that we have documents directly from the Federal Bureau of Investigation saying things like this. CHS advised that this is a real collusion story. Trump has been compromised by Israel, and Kushner is there as the real brains behind the organization and his presidency. So yeah, what a surprise that Ben Shapiro's out here telling you that the entire thing is a conspiracy theory. But what about other people at the Daily Wire like Matt Walsh? Yes, tough guy, masculine, don't touch our kids, drag queens, Matt Walsh. Let's see what he's had to say about this whole thing. Yeah, Matt Walsh, I'm sure it's all not immigration, Don Lemon, and ICE. I'm sure you're covering the Epstein files, right, bud? No, attacking Miss Rachel, Don Lemon, immigration, Bruce Springsteen, gambling, Elon Omar, Somali fraud, and yes, no Epstein anywhere to be found on Matt Walsh's content. Now, why is that, Matt Walsh? Don't you care about kids in America? Don't you care about these female victims? Don't you care the fact that, you know, the entire elite apparatus is all involved in a giant child trafficking ring now involving, we know, ritual sacrifice of babies? That's not something you think you need to cover, Matt Walsh? Okay, and so guys, we could do this forever. Pick whatever big MAGA talking head you want. Go to their page. You'll see that they're either completely fucking silent on all of this, or they have some take like Talmud Tatum or Ben Shapiro, where they're going to tell you that it's all a big conspiracy or that it's only Democrats in the files, instead of just, you know, having integrity, because that's what MAGA actually sort of ran a campaign on in 2024, was accountability for the deep state and the Epstein files. And now when they find out their daddy Trump is very disgustingly implicated, now it's all silence. And so none of you have any journalistic or intellectual integrity whatsoever. Nobody should take anything any of these people say seriously ever again. The Megyn Kellys, the Ben Shapiros, the Daily Wire, the Matt Walsh. Just throw it in the trash can. Because again, the fact that none of them, even up to the point of all of Fox News, have said a goddamn word about the new release of the Epstein.
All right, shout out to Valhalla TV. Let's look at Hakeem Jeffries on the
Governor
partial
Abbott has
shutdown.
endorsed our campaign for Comptroller because I'm a conservative he can trust. We work.
The Republican Congress began with the extremists holding the narrowest majority of any party since the Great Depression in 1930. The Republican Congress began, and later on today, as a result of the victory by Christian Menifee, where we congratulate on this significant accomplishment, that narrow Republican majority will get even narrower. And the question for Republicans will continue to be, are you going to double and triple down on your extremism, which is getting you nowhere with the American people? Or try to find a bipartisan path forward to actually address the issues that matter when it comes to making life better for everyday Americans? House Democrats are going to continue to fight hard to lower the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, and to clean up corruption everywhere that it is found in this town. Republican policies on the economy have been a failure. Republican policies on healthcare have been a failure. And Republican policies on immigration enforcement have been a complete and total failure. Taxpayer dollars should not be spent to brutalize and kill American citizens. Taxpayer dollars should be spent to make life more affordable for everyday Americans. Something that Republicans have refused to do from the very beginning of Donald Trump being sworn into office last January. Donald Trump and Republicans promised that they were going to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America on day one. That's what they promised. They lied to the American people. Costs haven't gone down, costs have gone up across the board. Housing costs out of control, grocery costs out of control, utility bills out of control, child care costs out of control, and health care costs out of control. Republicans have refused to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits in the Senate, and as a result, tens of millions of Americans are now experiencing dramatically increased health insurance premiums. In some cases, the monthly costs have increased by $1,000 or $2,000 per month. That is completely and totally unacceptable. Brought to you by the Republican Party. At the same time, it's Republicans, led by Donald Trump, who in their one big ugly bill enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. They literally have ripped health care away from more than 14 million Americans. And as a result of their policies, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics are closing all across America. In that one big ugly bill, they also cut SNAP by $186 billion, the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. The extremists, they literally snatch food out of the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. And why did they do all of that? For at least two reasons. So they could provide massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors, and at the same time, create a $191 billion slush fund that went to the Department of Homeland Security, including $75 billion to ICE, so that masked agents could unleash brutality and lawlessness on the American people. Everyday Americans have had enough with the failed policies of Donald Trump and Republicans in the House and the Senate. And the only real question that needs to be answered right now is, when will Republicans have enough with the extremism and the cruelty and the chaos and the corruption that has failed the American people? Questions?
Is there any scenario where Democrats would help the Speaker if he can't get the votes for this funding bill on his own?
Republicans have a responsibility to move the rule, which, by the way, includes a wide variety of other issues that we strongly disagree with, including their efforts to weaponize.
Texans work hard for every dollar they earn. As comptroller, my office will seek
the criminal contempt process so they can create a distraction from the Department of Justice continuing to hide the Epstein files. And so it's hard to imagine a scenario where Democrats are going to provide Republicans who spent all last year lecturing us about the fact that they had some big, massive mandate. Really? You had a 3-seat majority that, as of this evening, will be a 2-seat majority, the narrowest one since 1930. Spent all year lying to the American people, but pretending, apparently some of them believe it, that the results of the 2024 election represented a dramatic shift in how the American people viewed the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. What have the results of the last year said about that conclusion? What have the results of Saturday night, deep in the heart of Texas, said about the Republican conclusion? That somehow we were in the midst of some dramatic MAGA makeover. It was a lie then, it's a lie today, and it certainly will be proven to be a lie in November.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. During the last government shutdown, you spoke about how the American people were on your side. You cited polling and the evidence from all of the travel that you've done across the country. Did the last shutdown and the public sentiment behind it, does that have any bearing on this particular partial shutdown, how Democrats are approaching it? Do you believe that the same way you felt the American people were on your side over the healthcare fight, they're with you in this ICE debate? Does that somehow play into the calculus that you all are thinking about as you all figure out how to move forward?
Well, Democrats clearly had the high ground as it relates to standing on the side of the American people and pushing to fix our broken healthcare system and address the Republican healthcare crisis, which is ongoing, and that work is ongoing. And John Thune needs to stop erecting procedural hurdles and take up the House-passed bill that will allow for a straightforward extension for 3 years of the Affordable Care Act tax credits to benefit working families, middle-class families, and everyday Americans. In the same way that we had the high ground in standing on the side of the American people, and will continue to do so as it relates to health care, we clearly have the high ground in standing on the side of the American people with respect to ICE. ICE and the Department of Homeland Security need to dramatically change. And absent that, then a full-year appropriations bill is in deep trouble, because the American people are correctly demanding accountability. The American people want to see the masks come off. The American people want to see body cameras turned on and mandated. The American people want to see judicial warrants before ICE or DHS officers can storm homes harass people violently on the streets of America or rip people out of their cars. The American people want to see independent investigations so that if ICE or DHS officers break the law, they are held accountable. This concept of absolute immunity is absolute absurdity, because the American people know that if you break the law in the United States of America, you should be held accountable. Nobody is above the law. ICE officers should be held to the same standards as every other member of law enforcement in the country who put their lives on the line for us, law enforcement officers, police officers at home in New York and across the country. And ICE needs to be reined in. They're out of control. They need to be brought to heel so that there is a level of accountability and professionalism that the American people are demanding. Those are just a few of the issues that are absolute must-haves in advance of the Congress taking up a full year appropriations bill as it relates to DHS funding.
Mr. Jeffries, on this bill, on the actual vote capacity, will you vote for it, or will you vote with members?
We have a leadership meeting later on today where we'll have a discussion about it. We had a caucus meeting yesterday. There was a diversity of perspectives about how to move forward on this particular bill, but it's the 5 bipartisan bills where there's strong Democratic support, and of course, a variety of perspectives as it relates to the 2-week continuing resolution, the 2-week funding freeze related to DHS. So we'll continue those conversations in the leadership meeting today at 5:15, and then of course we'll have a full and robust discussion tomorrow morning at caucus. Thanks. Yeah, second row. I'll get back to you.
Thank you, Chair. On the subject of the contempt resolutions the House is set to vote on this week, what do you make of the fact that a number of members of your caucus voted with Republicans in committee, and do you plan on whipping against those resolutions this week?
Well, those decisions, of course, will be articulated by the Democratic Whip, Catherine Clark, at the appropriate time. It's my expectation we'll have a discussion tomorrow as well about these so-called criminal contempt resolutions. House Republicans cannot be taken seriously on this issue. The Department of Justice is now withholding, in violation of the law, more than 3 million documents related to the Epstein files. More than 3 million documents. And we don't hear a peep from James Comer or any Republicans about the failure of the Department of Justice to comply with a law, as well as a subpoena that had been previously issued in a bipartisan way. I'm a hard no on the shenanigans of House Republicans. I don't believe it's serious. And I also think that there have been ongoing discussions by the Clintons and their lawyers to testify that have been repeatedly, apparently, rejected by House Republicans on the Oversight Committee, because they don't want a serious interview, they want a charade.
Look at this. My new functional prostheses just arrived. The packaging stands out for its quality. The highlight is the detailed craftsmanship. Soft, stable silicone and
it's not something that I'm down with.
On the weekend shows, you talked about wanting a clear path for this, to know that the Trump administration is serious about working on this funding bill. What does that look like? Do you want to speak to President Trump? What do you need to have that clear path?
Well, Speaker Johnson and I have been in close communication. I've also been in close communication with Leader Schumer. Still haven't seen a clear path articulated, an ironclad path articulated by the Trump administration related to the type of dramatic changes that are necessary in order to rein ICE in. It's out of control, and the American people know it, as evidenced in public opinion survey after public opinion survey after public opinion survey, including amongst Donald Trump supporters. They know he's gone too far. The American people know that Donald Trump lied to them. He said we're going to target violent felons. Instead, they're targeting 5-year-old boys with Spider-Man backpacks. They're horrifying the American people. And so Democrats are committed to this fight. And again, we've made clear, line in the sand, red line, we've articulated the things that will be necessary for there to be a full year appropriations bill connected to ICE funding, because we're standing on the side of the American people, some of whom have been killed in cold blood by ICE in plain sight, horrifying the American people. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. You say that your side will help on the rule, but it sounds like some Democrats might be willing to vote yes on the bill. That's okay?
I indicated there's a variety of different perspectives, and we'll continue to have that discussion.
And what's the issue with some of them saying yes? Because they want FEMA money, they have earmarked projects that are important to their districts, they're moderate Democrats from swing states.
I have to talk to them.
Well, but what's...
He has to talk to them. That was such a poor answer
why is there a difference between the
for a politician. You have to talk to them.
Republicans are in the majority in this institution and has now been around for more than 200 years. It's hard to cite an example where in an institution that is majoritarian in nature, as you know, where the minority steps in to help the majority pass a rule when, as I've indicated to you, there are multiple bills within that rule that we strongly disagree with and do not support, separate and apart from the appropriations issue. I mean, that's not too difficult to contemplate. On rare occasions have we stepped in to deal with Republican dysfunction, including in the last Congress, where it related to making sure that we funded our ally, Ukraine, because we had to stop the pro-Putin caucus within the House Republican Conference from undermining the free world, our values, democracy, freedom, and truth, as opposed to continuing to play footsie with Vladimir Putin. That was a rare occasion. Hard to cite another example in the last few Congresses that actually involved Democrats stepping in to help Republicans govern an institution when Mike Johnson and my Republican colleagues have spent the last year lecturing the country that they have some massive mandate. If they have some massive mandate, then go pass your rule, which includes toxic bills that we don't support. Don't come to us unless you actually want to negotiate on the substance of getting things done that make life better for the American people.
You mentioned Texas. I wanted to ask you about one of the results. The state Senate race there, we saw a Democrat actually flip a seat that Trump won by 17 points, and I think he won by even more over the weekend. I just wanted to get a sense from you. Obviously, Texas primary races haven't happened yet, but are you feeling confident that Democrats could possibly win 4 out of the 5 redistricted seats and blunt Republican efforts to redistrict?
Yes. The Republicans done effed up in Texas, and they know it. We knew it months ago. And it's because of a variety of reasons. First of all, they were never going to get 5 seats. But they created a scenario where they tried to take 5 seats away from Democrats, didn't think that we were going to respond. California responds decisively, and we will pick up 5 seats as a result of Prop 50 in California. And it remains to be seen what happens in Texas. I can guarantee you they won't win 5 seats. They're going to struggle to win 3 based on 2024 performance, let alone what we've seen literally over the last year. And let me congratulate Taylor Remick, who ran an extraordinary campaign. It was a decisive victory. It was a shellacking for Republicans in Texas that even caught Ron DeSantis' attention. They can't ignore it. And by the way, Republicans have been losing elections and Democrats have been winning elections since January of last year. Irrefutable fact. This has now gone on for 13 consecutive months. And during the entirety of the Trump presidency, Democrats haven't lost a single meaningful election. Not one. Not one. We won the Iowa special election in January. That was a district that Trump had just won by 20 points, a state Senate seat in Iowa. Decisively won an election in February for the Westchester County Executive in a district partially represented by Mike Lawler.
While communities are being attacked by their own government, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is fighting back.
They are turning us into Nazi Germany.
Crockett voted against ICE funding, will impeach Kristi Noem, and hold them all accountable. Crockett fights for us.
Get hooked up on everyday spending with Cash App offers.
In March, we won the state Senate race in Pennsylvania in a part of the Commonwealth where we hadn't had representation in over 100 years. It was a district that Donald Trump had just won by 15 points. In April of last year, we won a special election in the Wisconsin State Supreme Court contest by over 11 points in a state that Donald Trump had just won, where Elon Musk spent over $25 million. In May, for the first time in 12 years, we won the mayor race in Omaha.
And joining me now is Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. Speaker Johnson, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Always great to be with you. Thanks.
It is great to have you, and as we sit here today, we are in the midst of a partial government shutdown, so I want to start right there. The latest reports are that you've spoken to Leader Hakeem Jeffries, that he has made it clear that you don't have Democrat support to reopen the government. So let me put this bottom line question to you. Are you confident that the government will reopen on Monday with Republican votes? Do you have enough Republican support?
Well, let's say I'm confident that we'll do it at least by Tuesday. We have a logistical challenge of getting everyone in town, and because of the conversation I had with Hakeem Jeffries, I know that we've got to pass a rule and probably do this mostly on our own. I think that's very unfortunate. Here's what's happened. You know, the House and Senate appropriators worked very well together, bicameral, bipartisan, committee-led process, especially after the 43-day shutdown, the longest in U.S. history last fall. No one wanted to put that pain on the American people again. The Democrats forced it. We were insistent that we would not allow that to happen. But, you know, I tip my hat to everybody, appropriators in both parties who got this together. After the Senate acted over the weekend, we will now have 11 of 12 separate appropriations bills approved by both chambers. Because they modified our package, they've sent it over a little differently, which means we've got to address the bills again. So they're going to separate the Department of Homeland Security bill. Our intention is by Tuesday to fund all agencies of the federal government except for that one, and then we'll have 2 weeks of good faith negotiations to figure it out.
And just bottom line, do you think you have enough Republican votes to reopen the government by Tuesday?
Yeah, because Republicans are going to do the responsible thing and fund the government. They're
But
playing.
you have a razor-thin margin. That's what I'm getting at.
I have a one-vote margin, yes, for the rest of 2026. But we're going to demonstrate once again that this is the party that takes governing seriously. The Democrats play games with this, and I think it's very unfortunate because what they're doing is they're jeopardizing services to the American people. When you're talking about the Department of Homeland Security, remember what's included in that. You have TSA agents for the airports. You have the Coast Guard. You have FEMA. We're in the middle of a winter storm disaster on the East Coast. We can't play games with this.
So let's talk about what Democrats are demanding as a part of this. They want to see changes to DHS, to ICE, in the wake of the deaths of those 2 Americans in Minneapolis. The changes they're asking for include an end to roving patrols, no more face masks, mandatory body cameras, and judicial warrant requirements. Given what has been happening on the ground in Minneapolis, Mr. Speaker, do you support any or all of those changes?
Listen, there's been tragedies in Minnesota and in Minneapolis in particular, brought about in large measure by the the circumstances on the ground. You have the governor and local officials there, in some cases inciting violence. They're encouraging citizens to disrupt the operations of law enforcement, and it sets up a dangerous situation.
But they're calling for peaceful protests.
Well, they are, but they're also saying to resist. They're also saying to, they're doxing the agents of ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And so when you're talking about masking, the reason that ICE agents wear masks is to protect their own identities and protect their own families. And in some circumstances, they've had a price put on their heads effectively by local officials, and that's what's created the dangerous condition.
But these state and local officials respectfully didn't pull the trigger that left these 2 Americans dead. President Trump has even acknowledged that ICE has made mistakes. Do you think within that context, any changes need to be made to ICE and the way it's operating?
Yes, I think President Trump was right to acknowledge that. I think he's operating in good faith. He said he wanted to turn the temperature down. He put Tom Homan in charge there. He was right to deputize him over that situation. He has 40 years experience in Border Patrol and these issues. So I think that this is going to happen, but we need good faith on both sides. Some of these conditions and requests they've made are obviously reasonable and should happen, but others are going to require a lot more negotiation.
And you'll support some of those that you say are reasonable?
Yes, in fact, I was in the Oval Office with the president a few days ago when he was on the phone with Leader Schumer, and they agreed, and Tom Homan was on the other line. And they agreed to most of those conditions, but the mask, for example, the additional judicial requirement for a warrant is a whole other layer of effectively bureaucracy. Remember, the immigration judges have already issued warrants, and that's what the ICE officials are acting upon. So there's a lot of details in this. We could get deep in the weeds, but we will do that over the next 2 weeks, and I hope the Democrats will be in good faith, as Republicans are, to try to bring some order to it.
Are there any proposed changes you wouldn't agree with? They're demanding also roving patrols and body cameras be worn by ICE officials?
I think even Tom Homan has acknowledged both of those things are acceptable and what he was intending to do already. So I think we're on the path to get agreement, and I really hope that everybody will come to the good faith. That's what's going to be required.
Let me zoom out and ask you about Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. You know, there's been a lot of focus on her hours after Alex Freddie was killed. Secretary Noem accused him of being a, quote, domestic terrorist before the investigation had been done. She said he had brandished a gun at agents, which videos and DHS itself later contradicted. Do you think the Department of Homeland Security needs new leadership, Mr. Speaker?
Look, I think Kristi Noem has been called to do a very difficult job. Remember that the agency was effectively eviscerated for 4 years under the Biden administration. Wide open borders, so nearly 20 million illegal aliens came across that border, and many of them are dangerous, hardened criminals and even terrorists. So she's taken over a crushing assignment. I mean, anyone who's in that position would have a difficult time with it. I think it's important for all of us at any level not to prejudge circumstances until we get all the facts, and I think that that's been a good reminder to everyone. We've seen now in the last couple of days that Mr. Freddie that passed, it was a tragic situation, that he was involved in the week, at least in the week before that tragic event, in inciting law enforcement, and everybody's seen the video now of him kicking the taillights out of an ICE vehicle. If local law enforcement had been involved, we have to ask ourselves this question: would he still be alive right now? Because if they had apprehended him and he was in jail safely, he would not have been on the streets to have been involved in that circumstance.
But you don't think kicking a taillight amounts to something that's punishable by death?
Well, no, of course not. No, and that was a separate circumstance. But the point is, it is unlawful to impede the operations of law enforcement, and it sets up a dangerous situation when people do that.
But do you have 100% confidence in Kristi Noem, Mr. Speaker?
I do have confidence in Kristi Noem. I think that
full confidence.
Yes. Look, she has a difficult job. I have a lot of sympathy for her job. I've got a difficult job too. But look, I think that there will be a recalibration in some measure. This is President Trump saying that they're going to look at the way operations are conducted. The intent is to rid our communities of dangerous, illegal aliens, hardened criminals who are here causing great havoc across the country, and they need to continue that work, and that is fully supported by the American people.
All right, let me ask you about another major story. On Friday, the Justice Department released what it said were the rest of the Epstein files. A group of Epstein survivors responded with a statement saying it's not enough, saying, quote, Epstein's enablers continue to benefit from secrecy. The Justice Department cannot claim it is finished releasing files until every legally required document is released and every abuser and enabler is fully exposed. As long as the survivors say that not enough is being done, has DOJ finished its work, in your opinion?
Every abuser and enabler to be fully exposed, we want justice to be done. It's long overdue. But I do think the Department of Justice is complying with the law. We have 5 million documents. You have over 2,000 videos and I think 180,000 images out there. And as soon as they finish the final release, they give us the full report to Congress, which is required under the law. And then they issue I think in the Federal Register, they have to publish why they've made any redactions. The DOJ will have fully complied with the law and done their job. But think of the mass, the volume of documents that they've had to go through. Remember, they have to go through and make sure that they're protecting the innocent. So some of these young women who were victimized, we do not want them to endure further harm. And so that's been the intention, is to make sure that their names are taken out.
President Trump's name appears throughout the Epstein files, including in many of the new documents released this week. Now, we want to stress appearing in the Epstein files does not amount to or imply criminal wrongdoing. But do you have any outstanding questions about the relationship between President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein?
I do not. I mean, I've spoken to the president about this privately and personally many times, and he's spoken very candidly and openly to the public. He says the same things privately that he does publicly. He's never had any concern about that. Remember, President Trump was one of the first people that called Epstein out. He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago off the property because he heard of some of the nefarious things he was engaged in. He's never had any concern about that at all.
He did at one point call these files a Democratic hoax. But let me ask you about something.
Well, what he said specifically was the hoax of the Democrats trying to turn this into a political issue and use it against him. That was wrong.
Let me ask you about something that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, who's now resigned from Congress last month, in part over this fight to release the Epstein files. This is something she said about you in an interview with the New York Times. I want to give you an opportunity to respond. She says, quote, I want you to know that Johnson is not our speaker. He is not our leader. And in the legislative branch, a totally separate body of government, he is literally 100% under the direct orders of the White House. Mr. Speaker, how do you respond? Are you 100% under the direct orders of the White House?
It's comical. If Marjorie had ever attended conference meetings and been involved as a member, she would know that that is simply not true. I vigorously defend Article 1 of the Constitution. That's the legislative branch. I was a constitutional law attorney before I became Speaker. The President and I work closely together because we have unified government. That's what the American people voted for last fall. They gave the Republican Party control of the White House, the Senate, and the House. And the intention there is that we work efficiently and effectively together. So the President and I have conversations, sometimes multiple times a day, about policy procedures. We have a lot of our discussions and sometimes debates together behind the curtain because you don't want to do that when you're in the same party out in public. That has made a very effective and efficient government. And I will say this, the first year of the Trump administration that we just got through was probably one of the most productive in all the history of Congress. And you can go back, that's what history is going to show. Very productive, very efficient, effective government. We had to reverse all the madness of the 4 years of Biden administration. And we got so much of it done already, and still more yet to do.
Is there any area where you do disagree with President Trump? Is there one place that you can point to?
Yes, but as I just said, we do this privately and not public. I'm going to support my president. Our party is leading. We are governing. We have closed the border. We've gotten the economy going again. We're fulfilling our promises. And that's why we're going to win the midterm election, by the way, and keep this going.
Okay, you take me to my next question, in fact. I want to talk to you about the midterms. And I want to play you something. This was in focus this week. President Trump said this last week at Davos. This was about the 2020 elections. Take a look.
I switched from Google to DuckDuckGo. It was easy. And guess what? I don't miss it at all. Here's why you should download it.
It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It's a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections.
Is it healthy for this country's democracy, for the sitting president to be questioning the 2020 election 5 years ago, something, claims that have been deemed to be false, again now that he lost?
What's healthy for our country and our democracy is for everyone to be laser focused on election integrity. You
But
don't have
that's
free
not
and fair
election integrity,
Well, yes, it
Mr.
is.
Speaker.
Yes, it is.
This was asked and answered and litigated and re-litigated. The page has been turned. He's still talking about an election that he lost, allegations which have been deemed claims.
The president is keeping the focus on election integrity. It must be in the forefront of everyone's minds, because if you don't have a free and fair election, you cannot maintain a constitutional republic. He's bothered by what happened in 2020, and we all know there was a lot of irregularity and problem in that, and we're not going to relitigate it. That's not the point. What we have to do is go forward and ensure that we don't have these problems in the future. That's why the House has passed the SAVE Act twice already. We have further election integrity measures that we're working on now, and everybody in both parties should applaud that. They should support it.
You're saying there were irregularities. State and federal election officials called 2020 the most secure election in history. But let me ask you about what's happening in Georgia this week. FBI agents executed a warrant at an election hub in Fulton County, seizing ballots and records tied to the 2020 election. I want you to listen to what Democratic Senator John Ossoff of Georgia had to say about this search. Take a look.
And here's the thing. This is a shot across the bow at the midterm elections. He tried to steal power when he lost it in 2020. We have to be prepared for all kinds of schemes and shenanigans. We have to be prepared for him to try to deprive people of their voting rights in Georgia.
What do you say to that allegation that President Trump is going to meddle in the 2026 midterm elections, that that's what he's doing in Georgia?
I find it comical that one of the senators from Georgia is talking about schemes in elections. Remember, Georgia was example A of that in the 2020 election.
There were two statewide recounts in Georgia,
They sent mail-out ballots to everyone. Everyone knows all of the problems that occurred in Georgia. It was very controversial and remains so to this day because of all the things that happened there. Again, we're not going to relitigate that, but what we have to focus on is going forward to ensure that there are not questions about the elections, and that's why Republicans are working at the federal and the state levels to clean those things up, and clean up voter rolls, to make sure illegals are not voting, for example. That's what the SAVE Act is about. And we have to continue that, and the president is keeping a proper focus on it. This investigation is to ensure that all the questions that about the elections in Fulton County are investigated properly so that people have confidence in the system again. That's very important.
But there are really no questions about election integrity from 2020 that have not been asked and answered. Even the Republican-led governor has pointed out it's been years and no one has ever come forward under oath with evidence of fraud in Georgia. But let me ask you, was it appropriate for the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard? She was on the ground there. She is prohibited by law from taking part in domestic law enforcement. Was it appropriate for her to be a part of the raid on the election center in Georgia?
I don't know. I do believe the DNI has some involvement, some role to play in ensuring election integrity, but I don't know the details of that, and we have to reserve judgment. I will.
The National Security Act of 1947 bars U.S. intelligence agencies from exercising law enforcement powers.
But we don't know that that's what happened there. I don't know that she was part of a law enforcement function there.
Okay, let me ask you bottom line. Do you have confidence in the results of the 2026 midterm elections, that they will be free and fair?
I do, because of all these efforts and the legislation that we've been working on, and the efforts and the attention that we're keeping on this subject. I think it's very important. And again, it's not a partisan thing. Every American should applaud that, and will continue.
All right, House Speaker Mike Johnson, thank you so much for being with us.
Always great, thank you.
Good to see you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or watch live on our YouTube channel.
My parents are very happy lately. I bought them a pair of smart zoom reading glasses. They no longer need to frequently adjust their glasses for presbyopia to see clearly both near and far. Wearing these glasses
This morning, there are Republicans across the country who are nervous.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis put this on Twitter. He said, special elections are quirky and not necessarily projectable, a general election. That said, a swing of this magnitude is not something that can be dismissed. Republicans should be clear-eyed about the political environment heading into the midterm. What is he talking about? What has him and other Republicans so worried? CNN chief data analyst Harry Etten is here. And this is all about a special election for a Texas state Senate seat around Fort Worth.
That's exactly right. Texas 9, because what happened in Texas 9, it didn't just swing to the left, it took a rocket ship to the left. My goodness gracious, the Texas 9 Senate District election margin. This is a district that Donald Trump won by 17 points in 2024. The Democratic candidate in the special election on Saturday, won it by 14 points. That's an over 30-point shift to the left. Any Republican, unlike Ron DeSantis, who doesn't take this seriously, they should realize that this is very perilous. They ignore this result at their own peril. Ron DeSantis is right to say, hey, special elections can be quirky, but this ain't no quirk.
Congressman Pete Sessions from Texas basically told me, he said, no Democrat should ever win in North Texas like this. Although we also said, there was an ice storm, 31 points. That's not an ice storm.
No, that ain't no ice storm. If you ignore this, you're going to ice yourself out of a majority come the midterm.
All right, when we look at these special elections, and this is something you and I talk about a lot and look at very closely in between the federal elections, what can they tell us?
Okay, so you see this 31-point shift to the left, right? If this were just one election, that would be one thing. But it's the slew of special elections that together paint a picture, and it's a picture that Democrats should love and a picture that Republicans should be really worried about. Because what are we talking about here? Okay, the average 2025, 26 special election, Democrats are doing, get this, 12 points better. 12 points better than Kamala Harris did in 2024. That was a state special election that happened in Texas on Saturday. If you look at the federal special elections, this 12 points is actually north of 15 points on average. I was looking back through the history books. This looks a whole heck of a lot like what we saw during the 2017-2018 cycle, where you saw these Democrats outperforming how Hillary Clinton did in 2016. And what did it forecast? It forecast a net gain of 40 seats for Democrats. And I remember back in Pennsylvania, remember there was that South Virginia, that was a congressional special election seat, but that was one in which the Democratic candidate was able to actually win in a deeply red Republican district. And that, of course, foretold big Democratic gains come 2018.
Foretells how? I mean, how frequently do these special elections foretell what happens in the midterms?
Okay, so you see this 12-point overperformance. You see this 31-point overperformance. But that don't mean nothing if it ain't forecastable to the midterm elections. So what are we looking at here? Well, take a look at special elections since all the way back in the 2005-2006 cycle. 5 out of 5 times the party that outperforms in the special elections goes on to win the U.S. House of Representatives. And this, of course, all paints a picture, right? Texas 9, the special elections, the history of special elections, in which Democrats look like they're in the catbird seat to take back the U.S. House come 2026 November.
Which is why Ron DeSantis and others are nervous this morning. Harry,
they should be.
Thank you very much. Kate.
Harry, will you put your first slide back up as I bring in the Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington to talk more about this? Thank you so much, gentlemen. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. That what Harry and John were just talking about, this 31-point shift in a special election, a state Senate seat in Texas. You see that and you think what?
I think Republicans are in trouble, and we've got a real opportunity in the elections coming up this year. It becomes very clear Donald Trump's policies are doing great damage to this country, and the Republican Party is going along with every single one of them. Whether you're talking about health care cuts, the tariffs, ICE terrorizing the people of Minneapolis and across the country, the president, doing things like, shutting down the Kennedy Center and tearing down the White House, acting more like a monarch than a democratically elected president. All of that has made Trump incredibly unpopular, number one. Number two, people have rallied all across this country. Millions of people have showed up to protest these policies. And also, look now, the Democratic Party actually is messaging fairly effectively. Our leadership, during the government shutdown, I think focused on healthcare, focused on what Trump was doing in a very effective way. Now the elections are a long way away. We got a lot of work to do, but certainly right now, the Republican Party is in deep trouble.
And for some context here, you have been one who has been a vocal Democrat speaking out to say the Democrats need to get their message straight ever since the 24 election. You came on shortly after that to lay out your prescription for basically Democrats need to get their act together. So context around your commentary here.
One more thing, Democrats scored a pair of surprising special election wins in Texas. In Houston, Christian Menifee won a House race, narrowing the slim Republican majority.
President Trump, my message to you is this. You've gone nearly a year without hearing from the people of the 18th Congressional District of Texas. The results here tonight are a mandate for me to work as hard as I can to oppose your agenda, to fight back against.
Switch to TurboTax.
And the hits keep coming for Republicans ahead of the 2026 midterm election in the Texas State Senate. Union leader and Air Force veteran Taylor Ramett flipped a deep red seat. Ramett's win is notable and being considered a wake-up call, frankly, for Republicans. That's because Trump actually won that district by 17 points in 2024. Ramett won by 14 points, so roughly a 31-point difference. The group chat is back. I hate to give people math early in the morning, but the math matters, because right now, if someone has a cold in the House, Mike Johnson is worried. Will they be there for the vote? What's going on? Like, it's narrow enough that these things matter.
Yeah, with that House win for the Democrats, that's a one-seat majority now that the Republicans have. But look, this is special elections are always overread, I think, for what they mean. In this case, a 31-point swing in a district that is often seen as sort of a bellwether with what it reflects around other voting trends around the country. And look, I think you can maybe go to what Donald Trump himself said about this. He said, when he was asked about it yesterday, "You mean I won by 17 and this person lost? Things like that happen. I'm not on the ballot." That might be, in fact, the problem for the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'm confused about is you're sending Tulsi Gabbard down to Fulton County to look at votes from 2020. And meanwhile, the calls are coming from inside the House that there are some frustrated voters in places that should be a lock. Am I misreading that?
No. The president has been very clear that he's concerned about his elections, including the past one that he lost and doesn't admit that he lost. He's still litigating that. It's not clear yet if he's going to put that same level of attention into the midterm elections this year. We keep hearing from the White House that that's going to happen, that he's going to be touring the country, that he's going to be getting out these candidates. And especially in the case of this Texas state legislative seat, it was a very half-hearted, late attempt to get involved. But you are seeing Republicans start to warn very publicly that this is a wake-up call for them. The Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Ron DeSantis in Florida, is saying, it's a special election, there's asterisks to this, but it's a big swing, and it's something that Republicans, you're going to expect, are going to be much more vocal about.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday says he agreed to a trade deal with India that cuts U.S. tariffs on Indian goods from 50% to 18%. In exchange, India will lower its trade barriers and halt the purchasing of Russian oil, buying from the United States and potentially Venezuela instead. A White House official told Reuters that the U.S. is removing a punitive 25% duty on all imports from India that it had levied over purchases of Russian oil. That had stacked on top of another reciprocal tariff of 25%. He added that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also committed to buying more than $500 billion worth of U.S. energy, technology, agricultural, and other products. U.S.-listed shares of major Indian companies rallied on the news. Trump on Saturday had teased a potential deal for India to buy Venezuelan oil after the U.S. seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a military raid in early January. The deal comes after months of tense trade negotiations between the world's two largest democracies. Last August, Trump doubled duties on imports from India to 50% to pressure New Delhi to stop buying Russian oil. And earlier this month, Trump said the rate could rise again. if India did not curb its purchases. Purchases of Venezuelan oil would help replace some of the Russian oil bought by India, the world's third biggest oil importer. Indian markets have been battered.
Not playing.
I know it's Buffalo.
Its purchases. Purchases of Venezuelan oil would help replace some of the Russian oil bought by India, the world's third biggest oil importer. Indian markets have been battered.
What do you got the temperature to in those homes?